Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz, continuing on with our team-by-team series. We've got the St Kilda Saints up again with special guest Fordy. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm glad to be able to speak about St Kilda today.
Yeah, I know they're very true to your heart, mate. So like all these team series, it's been great to have people who I know are very passionate supporters, because it's better than me sort of coming on and just talking absolute tripe about them. So, but before we jump into what should be another great episode, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular the YouTube, Spotify. Get in contact with me via X, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swizz26. Mate, the Saints, where are you feeling like they're going to go this year?
A mixed bag, mate. Mixed bag. Obviously, recent week, obviously a couple of injuries to some key players in our team. It's obviously Marshall's a massive one, which we actually got some good news, which obviously looks like he might be up at around one, but it's never great to have somebody, such a valuable player of our team and such a good player just all around in the league, go down with any type of injury scare. Might set him back a couple of weeks of just fitness. But yeah, look, it's been a hard, as a Saints fan, I'm sure you'd know that it's very difficult to go get positive into each year to see how we're going to go. But I think the last few years, I don't think we've lost more than 12, won less than 12 games. So we've been very competitive. Last year started off poorly, but we finished off really, really strong. So depending on which team comes out, if it's the first half of last year, we're going to have a very long year, or if it's the team that finished off those last few games and beaten a few premiership contenders, I reckon we might have a half decent side to push for finals again.
I don't know what's better as a supporter. Like, I remember obviously Richmond's year, I think it was the 2015 year where we got an absolute run after only 3 wins at the bye, where you feel like hope is absolutely gone. But then you string wins together and you've probably got a pulse where you're like, every week gets kind of exciting because it's like a mini final. Probably nearly better that way than the other way where, say, the Bombers have been flying all year and then you just absolutely drop off second half and it's deflating everywhere. Well, I feel like, if you're going to miss, nobody wants to miss. Everybody wants to play finals and consistency. But at least this is building some hope coming into this year, because obviously you did finish well, and especially in that last match against the Blues.
I think Ross, the boss, has had 2 different years where we were top 4 in his first year and dropped off significantly towards the end, and which led us to a first round defeat to GWS in the final down here at the MCG, to then a really poor start to then finishing off really, really strongly. But yeah, when you're so far back in the pack and looking at potentially bottom 4, I think the last 6 weeks we've won 5 out of the possible 6, and beating like Sydney, Essendon and Carlton, like teams that were up there. So it's difficult. It's difficult, but you definitely want to. It would be nicer if we started off really, really well, and just set yourself up so you've got potential, because you never want to be 6-7 rounds into the year and just looking at it and going, oh, well, there's another season gone because they're too far back and we can't catch the teams playing finals.
Well, the hard thing is, and this is one of the reasons bringing you on, it was a disastrous training session the other day. It's not what you really want to hear as a supporter. It's nothing better than, I guess, players going hard to earn their spot, but not when they're key players and they're all crashing into each other and, major concerns. Now, it looks like it's not as bad as first thought, and I've taken off Max King off that injury update because he is back, should be back training by next week. Sinclair with that hamstring should at least be up by round 1, but it was looking pretty sad, especially with the fact that you'd already lost Howard, you'd already lost Philippou, Henry. Yeah, it hasn't been the best preseason so far for the Saints.
No. Look, and as the teams ramp up and they have a little bit more of that, more game sim type of training and getting their body really fatigued, and having that contact consistently, you are going to see a few more injuries. It's never great. You always hope that after every session that they've had, you hear no news. It's only good news. But yeah, that was a very, very scary time after that week where 3 of our really important players and game changers for us, like I know Mason Wood doesn't get the credit he deserves probably outside of the St Kilda walls, but he's very important to our structure. He is our get out of trouble kick down the line. He's got such great hands and he's just an elite runner. So yeah, obviously Marshall, your ruckman these days, I know we say it through there, especially in fantasy football, they're really important, but he makes a huge difference. He's a contested beast and he just drives the ball forward for us a lot. And King, look, again, he hasn't played a lot over the last few years, but we saw it probably 2 years ago. He can just break games open, kick 6 goals and a half, and really turn the game on its head. Really hoping that he can get his body right to really utilize the potential that we know that everybody in the league knows that he has got.
Yeah, well, you look at the team and fully fit, you're like, okay, this guy's side could do some stuff. Like, he's still got Steele. You've brought in McRae to support him. The senior guys off the half back and Sinclair supporting the new youth with like Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira, who's very exciting. You got some young, absolute talented players. Darcy Wilson, I know you were saying off air, would be the next captain of the club or future captain. He's just an absolute beauty as a young player, running up and down that wing. So there's a lot to be excited about, but at the same time, it's just, you got to keep them on the park to keep that excitement level going.
Well, obviously some of the other people's in the rankings where they pick their A grade talent, and unfortunately some of them definitely don't rate some of the St Kilda players higher than what they are. And look, to be honest, they're probably right. Our A grade, like true proper A grade talent, is probably not there yet. A lot of the kids developing, like Wanganeen-Malira, absolutely, I would rate him as a future A grader. We want the ball in his hand. He's a great user of the footy. His decision making is great. Like Bradley Hill, controversial. He's not an A grader probably now, but when he came over he was an elite wingman. But he's still a great user of the football for us. He does make a few mistakes, but when you're going for the ball, going for targets the way he does, obviously you're going to make mistakes. We're all human. But yeah, look, I think some of the young kids coming through, I rate Wilson. Like I said, I think he will be future captain of our club. And then you bring in some elite experienced players in McRae. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, developing some of these young kids and teaching them how to be A-grade talent.
100%, mate. I've added, because of the Howard injury, where Aria Schoenmaker, who's becoming quite popular now with the Supercoach community. It's not the best price in the world. Like, we'd prefer him to be a bit cheaper at $270K, but definitely looks like he's set for a big role in there. What are your kind of thoughts about him, mate?
Well, his draft year talks was first round pick. Obviously had a few off-field issues. Ross the Boss will obviously straighten those things out. Like you're either a part of what he wants, or you kind of sit on the outer. Him breaking into the side last year, obviously, hopefully showed that he could potentially take that next step up. And when you can kick the ball the way he does, obviously very good for fantasy anyway. Like, those long kicks are generally marked as efficient, can find the footy, and as a potential first round pick coming into us at a bargain basement price. Yes, he's a little bit awkward on the Supercoach side of things, but he should go up in value significantly if he can string a few games together.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's just about stringing the games together. But with Howard missing pretty well the first half of the year, there's no other real obvious replacement because we've already got Kammer playing at centre half back to shore it up because we know the Saints have obviously lost Battle. So that's two key defenders that you've had last year out of that side. So, there's definitely a spot for him. As you said, he's played before. And, he should be a good one. Probably the only worry going down the track, he is Tasmanian, but we might explore that one in sort of 2-3 years' time, and hopefully he sort of locks in long term for the Saints. But yeah, no, it does look like a good one there, and a good size about him at 197 centimeters.
Yeah, look, that's it. Well, obviously our tall defenders, we kind of did lose Battle, but we got Cam and Edie, which he was working towards last year as that more of that intercept defender. He's got a good set of hands. He's only young as well, so not a huge scorer when it comes to fantasy, but he had been playing a lot of that fantasy up forward. So potentially Caminiti could be one of those ones who might get a little bit underrated with obviously his price point, but definitely a big watch for fantasy in the preseason because he might be one of those ones who might take over that battle role.
Yeah, 100%, mate. So I think I've got him in at the moment. The one that shattered me because I own this guy in a couple keeper leagues is Mateus Philippou. But yeah, hopefully he'll get back sooner rather than later. But he was the one touted to be getting more midfield time. Do you think it's just a case of Winghager going in and maybe not necessarily always playing in a defensive role, but fitting in there? Or do you see other guys putting their hand up and getting that, those extra CBAs?
Look, I think Sinclair's probably one of those ones who will put through. Clark as well. Like those two seem that they get the rotated through a fair bit. Winghager, his fitness is there. He's got through. He's just a couple of injuries here or there that just sets him back a little bit. Look at his hand. But I rate Winghager fairly highly. Where he fits into our team, whether or not he's looking to take over that Jack Steele as that inside mid worker, good tackler. He was our tagger for a fair bit, but he was winning the ball at the same time. Averaged 80 points when he played full games. He pumped himself up to a couple of hundreds. So yeah, obviously he's got a good potential as a decent scorer. Where he sits in that midfield, I think he starts. I think Ross likes him, and even if he's just learning the craft as a midfielder tagger, those tackles worth lots of points in fantasy. So might be a POD, but be very risky if you do take him, especially in just your classics.
Yeah, definitely more. I guess you start looking at probably in the deeper drafts kind of scenario. There's a rookie there on the interchange bench that has not left my team. I think it'd be pretty similar for yourself. Ownership at the moment is surprisingly at 56%, but maybe just because he's coming in at 172 Ks, and that is Toby Travaglia, mate. We've potentially Sinclair moving up the ground. I feel like he's the obvious one to come in as that either seventh defender or even running back off that half back. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, look, again, I think he's been training a little bit with the midfield. There was touted as we brought him in as the potential to play midfield, but I think he will definitely cut his teeth in, especially the efficiencies we've got just in the defensive line at the moment. Midfield's a little bit weaker, so we're probably looking for a little bit more experience with Sinclair going through. And yeah, we saw what he can do at under 18 level. An elite scorer off that halfback flanker, can take intercept marks. So look, depends on his preseason and how he goes. Like he might just fit in and go, well, we don't. Caminiti plays as that defensive place, and then yeah, Toby comes in as that instant replacement as that marking interceptor.
Well, he's 187 centimeters, is averaging 24 possessions at the under-18s level for Bendigo. To kind of give an idea, he is 187 centimeters. So that's in the same range as, say, a Dan Houston. And kind of playing that role where he can, get across an intercept, but also obviously use his skills there, finds the ball. He's got absolute great gut running, which is obviously why they're looking at him in that midfield training with them, and we'll probably make that transition at some point. But we've seen a lot of these sort of type of players come in and play that halfback role. I feel like he's going to be the next in line for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, he often is very, very difficult to come in and just absolutely dominate in the midfield. Most of the time, they're experienced. Obviously, your Walshes and that are freaks when it comes to those things. But yeah, you look at Dacos come off of the halfback flank, really get into the Sheasel, those types of guys. Like, obviously, I'm not sure if he's going to be in that same realm, but people have learned that your good users of footy, the guys who can read the ball well, setting them off the halfback flanks really sets them up to actually kind of score quite well in fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. Harry Boyd and the Rowan Marshall mix will be very interesting. Marshall coming back from that injury probably by round one. That's if he gets up for round one, like we suspect he should. But Harry Boyd will probably take more of the load through the preseason and match sim games. And then probably more sit off that, come off the bench. Marshall will play some forward, Boyd will play some forward. Definitely was a huge impact at Sandford last year, and that's why obviously St Kilda have picked him up. How do you kind of see that playing out, mate?
I think we're kind of been looking for a Paddy Ryder duo. When we played finals and Merrill Marshall could go forward, he started his career as a forward. You see, when he goes forward, he kicks goals. So having the extra person allowing him to be a little bit more dangerous around that goal line, and with Boyd, look, wow. Very, very big boy. He looked really, really good with the preseason, and he gets around the ground really, really well. You look at him at Sandford, big scorer, scores of 200 plus. So very exciting to see what he's capable. And at 99,000, he's a bargain basement price to have as your R3, and I think he probably plays round one.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to actually have a look at the McGarry Medal history, because I actually think it was our guest on the Port Adelaide, on the Gold Coast podcast, which was Chris, who does the Sandford commentary over there, was like, it's been a long time since a position outside of midfield, no different to the AFL, has actually won it. So, that is absolute massive get. It's probably the best competition out of the state leagues. And for the fact that he's coming in mature age, he's 26 years old. I think it's you guys have got a real good one there.
Yeah, look, we obviously try to do again. I think it was Jack Hayes was the one that we tried to bring in. We saw when either one, like, he was able to kick goals. He played forward, and Marshall was the number one ruck. This way, it might actually be the other way around, whereas Boyd is that number one ruck with Marshall playing more time forward. It really comes down to how he fits into that AFL standard, because it is very hard for a lot of these guys to go from the part-time football to full-time. But he's very exciting. I'm excited to see him go through, not just as a supporter, but as a fantasy side, because he's you don't get those types of scores without being a genuine decent player.
Yeah, 100%. And I was sort of kind of having a look at the list of players that have won the McGarry Medal in the past, and there's obviously some experienced guys like Bryce Gibbs went back there recently, and he's won it. Nathan Buckley's got his name on that medal before, so is Brett Ebert. He's in some good company now. Even Josh Franku, Port Adelaide Star. So that's Scotty Hodges back in the day. He was a very good forward. Johnny Platten. The list goes on and on. So imagine being in the company of all those guys, and now he gets his opportunity at AFL at a mature age. We know the Rucks take some time to development, but he won't, because he's ready-made, playing against the best Rucks week in, week out, and at the right age to come in and make an impact either up forward or in the ruck. And I feel like it allows Marshall just takes that load off him. And also the great thing is it'll help the development of Dobson, who you guys have probably picked up the most touted ruck in the under-18s to have him around at training.
Yeah, it just goes to show, obviously, if you're picking up Dobson, they clearly see there's a potential on how they want to play going forward for the next one. It's just how they kind of look through and go, yeah, we see probably 2 ruckmen as the future of how we play around at St Kilda, I think. Very similar to the Fremantle proposition, having 2 there, but I'm guessing that Marshall's a little bit more mobile and a little bit more flexible, and hopefully we can fit them both in the side. And obviously, as a win-loss thing, will be a big advantage for us.
Yeah, 100%. Darcy Wilson's one I've got as a draft smoky this year, because just it happens with these players. They get their draft year. There's a lot of focus on it, and then all the guys being picked up who've been picked up in the draft in this year are the ones that get the focus. But he's still listed as a forward mid, which we do love at the dual position players. First season, he's come out and he's averaged 65. And he'll obviously continue. Like, we know his running capacity. He'll continue to take a bigger role on that wing. Potentially might even see a little bit of time inside, but I think it's more around those contests he'll be pushing up, and we know he's pace away from contests and trying to kick it up to those forwards. Kind of what you kind of see his scope. We know like long term. I know you've got him touted as a future captain of the club, but kind of what do you see his scope this season?
This season, again, you see him. He's in the top 2-3 of our running blocks. He's winning 2K time trials. So his tank is there. His work rate. You speak to anybody at the club, and they just everything he does. He's so professional at what he does. They love him. So for him to take that next step, I can't see it shouldn't be too much with Henry's injury on the wing. I think you see him probably going to lock himself away on that wing position this year. He might get a little bit more midfield time as Henry comes back and they try to shuffle things around, because, once Henry comes in, he is a legitimate wingman. Darcy will be that next person who comes through as that link up midfielder to take over as well. So I see his potential. He could average 80, 85 plus this year, just based on the amount of time he's going to be around the ball.
Yeah, and I think Jake from Saints TV said recently that it's players like Wilson and Owens who are really driving the culture that Ross wants there. First to train, last to leave kind of players. So that does bode well for the future of the club.
Yeah, it does. And he'll have Jackson McRae, who has been at a different club, been able to bring it through. He's obviously early stages of his career. He had a little bit of deficiencies in what he'd done, but him to learn how to then change the way he plays and running both ways will be a great leader to these young kids coming through as well. So I reckon, being able to learn from McRae on where to run, on how to learn to play it, will only improve him as a player.
Yeah, well, it's another former premiership player that you add to the group, and that's all. Obviously, after you want experienced guys who have been to the top and understand. That's what it's going to take. Not to say the coaching staff don't, but it's that little bit different when you're kind of listening to some of those senior players that come in, and they've done it for such a long time and been there and tasted the glory. So there'll be a lot of players looking up to him, I'm sure, and learning from how Jackson's done it for such a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, speaking of Spokies, Hugh Garcia. Probably you would look at his scores with points. You're like, only averaging about 40, but sub. He was an electric sub for us. I'm hoping that Ross gives him the opportunity to go in and take that next step, giving him full games, because outside of St Kilda, he's probably not rated anywhere near as what he should be. But you ask anybody within the St Kilda realms who watch the games, he is electric. He's chasing. He's want to tackle. He's going to be an exciting one, and I really hope to see him take the next step with more game time.
Yeah, well, 100%. There was, he's got a pretty good points per minute. Like it was at just under the 1, so 0.8 for the year, coming on as that sub. So if you think he's playing 100-minute games and he's going 0.8, that's a guy that can average 80. So and he's coming in at, he's 245 for, averaging 45 for the year. So, there's definitely, that's the sort of person who can easily put 25, 30, 35 points on his average if given the right opportunity. And we just talked about the fact that, he'll have somebody like a McRae coming in and mentoring him as well. Can help him find the ball more and more. And and that's all, some of these players need. Sometimes there's a bit of an opportunity to show us what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like it comes down to there's just development. And sometimes these kids just take a little bit longer, or sometimes you just need to get that extra bit of game time into them to really get the most out of them. And obviously Ross has been there. Obviously early on with St Kilda, he was not so much of that developing the young kids. He moved over to Fremantle, completely changed the way he thought about development. And you can see now it's the kids and the interactions and how much everybody's enjoying his time and how much he smiles every time you see it. He's definitely taken a different Ross Lyon compared to what he was when he first won, but obviously you still see the traits of the old Ross the Boss.
100%. I'm going to just give you some averages from a player right now. So this player averaged 126, and then he's gone 109. He's had a bit of a down year and went to 95, and then rebounded and still averaged just over a tick over 108. You know who I'm talking about?
Jack Steele, the captain.
And the funny thing is nobody's talking about him this preseason at all. It's funny that he's like last year he was a bit more hype because he was coming in at value. But here is a guy who has been top of the tree before in Supercoach. He is still the captain of the club, leading from the front. You feel like some people think he's 35 years old and he's on the way out, but he's still a very much big part of the Saints. 29 years old, which is any player who's still, I think, under 31 is still very much in their prime, and it's not even over 30. So, I feel like it's amazing how some players are just dismissed because of who knows reasons, but he's still definitely one of the best premiums in Supercoach and one of the best midfielders in the comp.
Yeah, look, you don't become a captain of a club without obviously being a decent player. He obviously had a few injury niggles, came back this year, obviously bounced back with played the full 23 games, averaged 110. I had him at the start of the season and hadn't carried him all the way through, but he was a little bit cheaper, so he was that rebound pick. But you look at it, he probably has dropped off a little bit. His pace is kind of as purely as a player you can do. You are going to get the type of game that he plays. You are going to get banged up, and obviously we saw that not last year, but the year before. Rebounded again. Look, he's lost a little bit, but somebody like that who the like for tackle, he really does it. 169 tackles for the year. 13, 15 in a game, that's just fantasy gold. And if he is not going anywhere, we don't have too many young kids going, hey, I'm taking your spot. So, 100% still thinks he'll be that 100 to 110 scorer. If we get a little bit more of our kids develop, he might even step up above that 110 because there's just less importance of him being able to have to get the ball. He can be more of a link-up player, and he can go forward, kick goals, because I only kicked 8 goals, but he doesn't go forward enough to then hit that scoreboard. He might get the opportunity with some more young kids to then go forward and be more damaging. He's kicked some critical goals for us, which led to a couple of wins for us. So yeah.
For sure, mate. And maybe it was because the idea of Philippou was coming in there, but he's not going to be there, early on, taking any points off him. McRae does come in, but that could be just a good thing where McRae, we do know, likes the handball. And yeah, there could be a little bit of waxing, especially around the inside contest where it might be one gets the clearance and bang, short handball, which is, as much as it's only a couple of points, but at least it's an efficient position, which is gold. And like you kind of look through the list of the top midfielders last year, so you got the standouts, and you take out the dual position players because we're looking at midfielders, but your Bont Butters, Neil Dacos for sure. But then you get into Heaney, Trelaws missing the year, Sarong, Merritt, Dunkley, Patrick Cripps, Brayshaw, LDU, who obviously has his injury concerns most seasons, but did play 23 last year, and then a guy who played 23 as well, Jack Sinclair, on that same list. So he was around the same average as LDU, Brayshaw, who's got a lot of hype, Cripps, who won the Brownlow by the length of Flemington, and even Josh Dunkley, all in that mix. So outside of sort of Merritt, Sarong, Heaney, Dacos, that's 4, Neil, Butters, and Bont. So that's kind of your top 7. People are talking about a flex this year who could be in that 9th midfielder. So he's definitely in that group where I think at some point we've got to consider, because midfield 8 and midfield 9, he's very much part of that, and he only needs to put a couple points on his score, and he could be at the top of that tree.
Yeah, it really comes down to like the role that he wants to choose and who's in that midfield with him. Like, again, if we have that Windhager in that midfield, he'll be probably more of that in and under type of player, because that's the type of player that he likes to be. And Steele still looks the gold. Like, he's tackling, his ability to do it, and you don't do what he's done for quite that time without being an elite scorer and have the potential. Look, there's no one else really probably taking the points off him at St Kilda, which is obviously where he sits. But yeah, I can't see him dropping below 100 this year. So as a premium, you feel that confidence that you're going to get what you get from him. And where that sits, if he improves again or he just sits around where he's at, that his tackle rate and his work rate will make sure that he is constantly hitting up as a premium scorer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Especially if you're a draft player, like I can see people looking at sort of him in that zone of the second round, and like, oh, I'm going to go maybe a more flashier name. And he just continues to sort of slide. I feel like there'll be somebody who's going to have sort of that pick 1-2 in a snake competition, and they're going to get to the end of the second round and go, "Hey, I can pair my Bont and Butters here with a Sinclair. I mean, it's not a Sinclair, a Steele, and I'm absolutely flying with 2 absolute elite midfielders."
Yeah, look, and I'm going to say it often looks at you look at the lesser clubs, often you get more value. Like if we're looking at draft, the likes of Wilkie, average 91, and I don't think anybody's talking about him as a defender. Yes, he's an elite defender, and he's probably very much underrated, but his intercept marks and his ability to do it, like 91 average from probably our number 1 back playing on their key forwards, and he just pumps out some serious scores with his intercept marking. So being a St Kilda supporter, I've got a few St Kilda players in my draft team, but I reckon I've got a lot of value out of them because they often get overlooked because they're not part of the big clubs, so a lot of people don't talk about them.
100%. I'm actually scrolling through because that will make one of our fans very happy, because we did actually get a question about Wilkie. So that's Dogman 56. I don't know if you're watching that, mate, but definitely you raised the question when we did our Defenders pod, where's the love for Wilkie? And we talk about underrated players in the AFL all the time. And yeah, there's one that's definitely underrated for what he delivers from a footy point of view, and also from a Supercoach point of view. And now that's sort of, there's no Howard, there's no Battle taking any of those intercept marks.
No.
Yeah, it would not surprise even again if there's a slight uptick, or at least keep his average, and feel like he will float past quite a few people in especially the draft competitions. And there's a good one that people are able to pick up.
Yeah, well, again, very underrated on both football ability and Supercoach, or in fantasy. It doesn't matter which one it is because you are getting those intercept marks. Just again, looking for value. Yeah, he's definitely one of those ones where I think you could probably see that he doesn't have the same amount of name out there compared to some of the other defenders. So definitely one for this. Not so much a sleeper because he still scored quite high, but one you probably get a value in your draft picks later on in that mid draft.
Yeah, well, as you said, it was a 91, nearly 92 last year, but it's even the year before, like he averaged 94. So he could return to that with those players missing. And yeah, you're probably picking up, well, when we always look around draft, you look around the players that are around that person's price. So players like, your McKirches, for example, and then you kind of scroll down, Short, Roberts, which are people are talking in a classic point of view. They're going to kind of completely bypass because there's this, less sexier name. And as you said, I think lesser clubs unfair to you Saints supporters, but I know exactly what you mean when you look at the big clubs like, your Collingwood, Richmond, West Coast, who, the massive supporter bases and stuff. And obviously have had a lot more success than unfortunately your Saints have. You do kind of get pushed aside with people who are neutrals. And definitely for the people who are switched on can definitely find a good egg like Wilkie.
Yeah, well, again, I don't think that we've ever had, for quite a while, we haven't really been a Supercoach team. We would have one or two guys you go through, but you look at the likes back when we had Dale Santo, Goddard, Nick Revolt, like that era, St Kilda were all about it. But you're winning games, you're looking good, you're up in that top four. As soon as you drop out of that, you kind of, like, as St Kilda, not a big club, there's definitely lots of value in draft for some of these lesser known clubs. Unfortunately, obviously Richmond, at the moment, they've gone through that bottom end period where they're about to drop off, but like they're still going to get lots of names that they're looking at going, okay, well, they have to score. The likes of Hunter Clark just can't get his bodies right. Still averaging 76, and you look at where he's probably going to fit into the St Kilda team, like he gets his body right. He's in our best 22, and that 76 probably goes up to that 85 mark. So if you're looking for somebody that middle to low end bench cover, potentially depends on how deep your draft is. He's one of those ones you're going to get some good value out of him.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Saints got a lot of actual good value there just because people are going to bypass them. And you mentioned some great names back in that time. Got to give Lee Montagna a shout out there because he is the new Supercoach ambassador. So maybe that'll make some Saints players a bit more front of mind because he'll definitely be talking about it on some Supercoach podcasts as the season comes up.
No, absolutely. Like again, the best part about it is we've got a couple of young kids coming through that will fit in. Like some of the draft players, some cheaper players like Boyd and Toby got great opportunity to come into a side that they probably should hopefully get a fairly good crack at it. Considering our draft where we sit with our ages, obviously at the sub you've got Zach Jones, like. Depending on where things go, you saw when he came in and when he wasn't a sub, like he actually comes in and he only averaged 70, but like I think the last where did he sit? He goes probably scored a couple of 80s and 90s in that last part when he played full games. So he's definitely worth having a look at if you are struggling a little bit towards that back end. From round 18 to round 24, he pretty much scored 380s, 100, and a couple of high 70s. So when he was able to play full full games, he could score. He hasn't lost it. He was a very good scorer of the football. So
even if you're not looking at these Saints players as starters, as the season sort of rolls on, they've got a really friendly bye of that round 13, and then after that, their fixture does open up. It's not the greatest at the start of the season. I think 3 road trips to Adelaide, which is not what any club really wants. But you start getting quite a few Marvel games as like the Dogs, Pies, Hawks, Swans. And no, there's a couple tougher games in there. At least they're all on your home track. And then you finish this week leading into Supercoach finals. The D's and the Roos both at home, Richmond at the G, Bombers at home, and then unfortunately the away trip for grand final week against GWS. But yeah, just before that, there is a good sort of period where you get a month of teams that most likely will be down the lower end of the ladder. If you've got kind of a couple of premium players there, you can definitely do a lot worse than owning a few of these Saints.
Yeah, you look that buy is definitely very fantasy friendly. The start of the season is probably not, but to be honest, I'll probably be looking at some of these, like just having the rookies with Toby, Boyd, and then I'll probably be looking to, depending on how that flex goes in and how the fixture fits. Like Marshall, I'm probably not starting purely based with the injury, but if he's able to play Ruck and then move forward, and if he'd be a great opportunity, especially with an easier run towards the finals after those buys as that flex, then obviously we've got a fairly decent run home. Hopefully, we might have some of these guys pushing up as the next A-grade premium scorers.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I think that covers St Kilda at pretty good depth, mate. I appreciate you joining me to talk the Saints.
No problems, mate. I always enjoy speaking about St Kilda in a fantasy thing rather than a wins-loss type of thing, because it has been a few difficult years as a Saints supporter. But looking forward to the season and what it comes.
Yeah, no, 100%. Continue to check us out with all our team-by-team reveals as we count down to the start of the AFL season. Thanks for joining me, Fordy. Thanks, community, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Wiz.